Got done watching Netflix's new series, The Witcher, based on a game series by CD Projekt Red. Apparently I did more than Entertainment Weekly did, and they skipped 90% of the entire series. They had a lot of crap to say about the show, gave it a grade F. So this series is 8 episodes long. It's exactly what you would expect out of a Netflix series, and there's a lot of world building, there's a lot of action, there's some boobs, just run-of-the-mill stuff. So I finished the entire series, 1 through 8, just kind of binge watched it. For this episode, I'm not going to do any spoilers. Go through episodes 1 through 4. In my opinion, you need to give every series a 4-episode trial period, at least for anime. That's what I do. These long-form shows, maybe a little less. We're just going to go over kind of like the first 4 episodes. Maybe you want to watch it. Maybe you don't want to waste your time on it. So let's get started with episode 1. Episode 1 was pretty good. They started off really well. And a lot of action, some world building, introducing some characters that'll have a role later on in the story. Henry Cavill is a hunksicle, stupid attractive.
Yeah, he's a hunksicle. He sure is.
If you played any of the video games, he's exactly what you would expect. The hunk that gets all the girls. He's a very lovable guy. So in Entertainment Weekly said he's a hunk with a heart of gold.
Serious?
It's just pretty good. I mean, all the main characters are very likable. You get the feeling that things are moving kind of fairly quickly in the beginning, then they kind of slow down. Around the screen, sometimes there's a really weird haze effect that happens on the borders of the screen. It's kind of distracting. Some of the special effects are kind of distracting. I assume because this is a fairly new show, they didn't get the funding for the effects that they really needed to, but ultimately it is pretty good. You can look past those effects. The effects are just a little corny. Getting into episode 2, there's some pretty interesting plot threads that come along. The child actors in this show, I mean, they might need a little bit more work, kind of just suck. There's a lot more world building to this. It's fairly interesting how they go into the magic side of things. They introduce prominent characters. You get to kind of see some of the rules of all these things, kind of where status and money brings you in general. Now you kind of get to understand that there's a more episodic feel to this show, kind of like a Monster of the Week sort of thing, where Geralt, your main character, goes off and hunts a monster, and it's pretty interesting. In episode 3, you get a lot more boobs. Just boobs are always fun. I mean, for women and men, you want to just see some nice tatas. You get to see, again, more the Monster of the Week, which is good. It feels more like a video game that way. In video game, obviously, there are quests and side quests and stuff. You kind of get that feel with this episodic nature of the show. The main character stories, they're starting to come together. Like, there's a lot more character development being shown than in other shows than you would expect. In this episode, you see the actual layering of the show's timeline. They have an interesting way of doing it. It's not new by any means, the way they layer the timeline, but it is interesting. Well, they give you hints the episode, and throughout the series, they'll play on that a little bit more. Episode 4 is more of the same. Episode 4 is a slower episode, but there is a lot more building of the world. They really lean in hard when it comes to the timeline of the show. Get a lot more backstory and a lot more history on the characters. At this point, you're really starting to kind of piece things together on your own, how these things are happening, what's maybe going to happen in the future. It's a very good show, and I do suggest you watch it. My final rating on this show will be a 7 out of 10. Not as high as the IMDb, which gives it a 9 out of 10. That's a little bit too high, in my opinion. It does get a 7. It's not as great as I would want it to be, but it is pretty good. And it's probably the best show that they've done. It's the best adaptation show that they've done so far. We'll see. Time will tell with the release schedule of this. but I assume it's probably not going to be too long, especially with Netflix getting outclassed by, Disney. It is probably one of the best shows on Netflix. Go for it. It'll be a fun watch. You like fantasy TV shows, or you just like the game series in general, just check it out.